Hello, folks. Welcome to another edition of Creator News Live. So excited for this one. This is something that is top of mind for everybody that we've been talking about. Connor and I have been at some conferences recently. I know Brian's been speaking a lot of different places, but this is going to be a fun one. So as we're going along today, make sure you ask your questions wherever you're watching from. Ask them down below. We'll be able to pull them up on the screen because this is a topic that I just sent out like my reminder email this morning, and people are like, oh my gosh, I need to know more about this. So I'm really excited Brian is here. I have seen him at a couple different conferences we've been at Social Media Marketing World and then CEX. And super impressed with the guy. He knows his stuff, and it's top of mind. So this is going to be fun jumping into this. So Brian, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I love all your episodes and the epic content that you're always putting out.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And we have the amazing, unsinkable Connor Brown here as well. Connor, how's things in Florida? Are you gearing up for Halloween today?
Happy Halloween, gentlemen. Happy Halloween. It actually feels like all in the air down here in Orlando, which is unusual. But before we start the show, I need to know what Halloween candy are we most looking forward to? Me, Kit Kat and mini Reese's, or anything sour. Sour Patch Kids. I love all that stuff. Give me all of that.
What about you, Brian?
I'm an Almond Joy guy. Reese's. I love the peanut butter. My wife does not like peanut butter, so this is my one time a year where I get to kind of go crazy with it.
Right. Yeah. So they're chocolates. Like they're saying that chocolates, like all the bags are getting smaller and stuff. And so anyway, but I'll make sure I hide some around the house before the funny thing is I actually went and was digging around for something, and I found a bag that I had hidden like from the year before. So, of course, I ate it anyway. That was fine. So, anyway. All right, we got some people chiming in. We've got Magi Reese's. Oh, he's a Dustin from Magi saying, any shape or variation. Look at this. And then we got our friend Rich saying, hey, gent. So, this is going to be a fun show. It's really great that it is Halloween because this is a scary topic for a lot of people. But I'm going to hit go on the podcast machine, and we will get started. Hello, folks. Welcome to Creator News Live. I'm Jeff C., and you're not.
And I'm Connor Brown, and this is the show that keeps you up to date on what's happening in the creator economy and so much more.
So today, if you've ever wondered about why your content isn't getting found like it used to, maybe you're curious about how AI is changing the rules for SEO and discoverability, or maybe you're ready to learn how to make your content stand out in a world where algorithms seem to have all the power. If that sounds like you don't want to miss this episode because today we're joined by Brian Piper, co-author of Epic Content Marketing and host of the AI for You podcast. Brian has spent years helping brands understand how data, AI, and strategy come together to create content that actually gets seen. He's going to be sharing his best insights, proven tactics, and a few predictions for what's coming next. So sit back, clear your schedule, clear your mind, and get ready for this week's episode of Creator News Live. Brian, thank you so much for being here, my friend.
Really appreciate it. It's going to be a fantastic conversation. Looking forward to it.
So, we've been doing these little clips for everybody who comes on the show. So we are going to go ahead and hit Brian Piper's theme song.
Brian Piper is here, making AI's content clear. Search is shifting, have no fear. Brian Piper is here.
There you go.
Wow. All that hair and no beard is going to be a whole different look for me.
That's right. Yeah. My face looked a little wonky on that one too, but we won't go there. So thank you, Brian, once again for being on the show. So excited.
We are so excited to have you here, Brian, as well. If you don't know who Brian is, you should. Brian Piper is an author, award-winning international keynote speaker, and consultant. Brian has been optimizing digital content since 1996 and has created online training programs for dozens of companies. He wrote Epic Content Marketing for Higher Education and co-authored the second edition of Epic Content Marketing with Joe Pulizzi. He's also the host of the AI for You podcast, founder of the University of Rochester Marcom AI Committee, and a member of the AI Council. Again, Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It was quite an introduction.
That's right. Very impressive. Very impressive. Those books, those are some of my favorite books, really. I mean, like the one you co-authored with Joe is a must read for anybody who's interested in like boosting their business, content marketing, just plain marketing. It's a great book. Something else that's really great is our friends over at Ecamm. You can find out more about them by going to ecamm.com/Jeff. Thank you for Ecamm for sponsoring the show. If you haven't popped into their community, they do a great job training you on how to make shows like this, get your content out there, make presentations, all sorts of things. Podcasts, you can name it. You can do it with Ecamm. Let's go to ecamm.com/Jeff to find out more. But we are here to talk all about SEO and what we can do about it, the AEO, what in the heck does that mean? But I want to know you, from the audience, you guys, where are you discovering most of your information? Like when you're searching for like how to fix a toilet or whatever, like are you going to Google? Are you going to ChatGPT? Are you going to YouTube? You're looking up fixing toilets on social media? How are you finding your information? Drop it down below in the comments. I want to know how you guys are searching now. I know that I have switched mostly to Perplexity. That's what I use now. But I want to know what you guys are using as we get going from the show. But first of all, Brian, I want to talk about this shift from traditional SEO to what you call this AI-powered discoverability. So what are you talking about there? What is that, and what do we need to know?
Yeah, and I think it's more than just like AI-powered discoverability. It's just discoverability in general. I mean, people are searching differently. So, as you said, you're using Perplexity instead of Google, and especially if you're targeting, Gen Z or Gen Alpha, they're on social, they're searching in communities, they're using voice, conversational AI. I think in a lot of ways, traditional search was, already broken between, sponsored links, featured snippets, it was pretty easy to game the system. You had to click through all the different links to figure out your answer. So generative search really does a good job of doing that research for you, and it's constantly getting better. And I think the new goal is not to just be, the link that the user clicks on. I think your new goal is to be the source of the AI citations.
That's a great point.
Yeah, that's going to be big. And we already have so many comments about people and how they're searching and all those things. But we have a great one from our friend Rich Watts, who's wishing us good morning, and he's looking forward to the discussion. He's already learned a new acronym from Jeff's email, AEO, which segues perfectly into this next question for you, Brian, what does that mean? What does answer engine optimization mean? And how does it differ from the traditional SEO, search engine optimization, so many marketers have been familiar with for?
Yeah, and I think, lots of different names for it in the SEO community. People are calling it AEO, they're calling it GEO for generative engine optimization, or AIO, AI optimization. But it's really all about conversational search and the switch from keywords to questions and answers and conversations. So, I mean, the goal of SEO was to rank high so that people are going to click on your link. And it was all about what keywords you rank for. And whereas now the goal of AI search is to be the cited source and hope that helps users kind of come to a decision and eventually come to your site to convert. I think the fundamentals of SEO still matter. I mean, but it's less about keywords and it's more about those, the EAT criteria, the EEAT. It's expertise, authority, expertise, experience, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. So that's what these searches are looking for. And I think that's what we need to start thinking about when we're creating our content.
So I want to just ask a question because you mentioned trustworthiness. And I mean, we hear that all the time. Marketing speak is like, be authentic. You want to build that trust with your clients. How is it being measured though? How do you measure, how does the algorithm measure that you're trustworthy or not? Is it that you have so much content and everything's linking back to you? I mean, how do they measure that trust?
Yeah, and I think it's those first three criteria that really help with that. So do you have real world experience in that area where you're saying you are, where you're telling people that they should trust you? are you an expert in that field? Are you, either certified or, do you have some sort of credentialing that you can
Mm,
use? And then are you authoritative? Are you the source that people go to learn about that particular topic or area? And I think a lot of that comes from third party people talking about you. And, that's one of the things that you really need to start thinking about optimizing. You can't just, do SEO on your website anymore and expect people to find you. You've got to get other people talking about you. You've got to get other people sharing your content. You've got to go out and create a community of people that can become advocates and influencers for your brand, for your products, for your services. So I think that's where you're starting to build that trust. You're starting to create those indicators of trust with your content.
awesome. So we got some great comments coming up. So we asked the question, where do people search? Doghouse Dog Media says ChatGPT and YouTube. The Zach Brown says, I'll start with Google, but I'll often ask ChatGPT to give me step-by-step directions for a certain thing. Jim Fuse says, I started using Atlas, and I like how it lets me use ChatGPT to improve my content. That's OpenAI's own browser now, if you didn't know that. And then Dustin from Hey Magi says, still mostly using Google for search if I'm just looking for websites, but if I'm searching how to do something, it's using Magi and Claude and web search. And then Chris Stone from Castset says he doesn't trust AI all the way, so he kind of Googles separately, which I think a lot of people are doing, especially if you're doing something that you need to be super, you make sure you're super accurate on. But I have this question for you, Brian. It's like we've seen people move from Google, and like so many people in our comments move to ChatGPT. They go to TikTok even. I know you mentioned on one of your podcasts, your kids, that's how they find restaurants and all sorts of things. And even voice assistants, because Alexa's giving you the best answer that it knows and not worrying about the results. So how does that change how creators should think about being found and even creating content?
Yeah, and I think that is a big mindset shift. And what we've always said, Joe's been talking about this for years, but, find one channel where you can create the best content for your primary audience. But now we have to figure out how to take that original audience-focused content and then repurpose, retarget, and redeliver that content and optimize it for all the different channels where your current and new audiences may be searching, and then figure out how to get your customers and third parties to review and talk about that content. I think it's more critical now than ever to understand the intent of the user's search. And even talking with my kids, I ask them where they go to find things, and they're like, well, it depends on what I'm looking for. If it's a how-to, I go to Google or ChatGPT. If it's just a quick answer, I may still go to Google. If it's recommendations from other people, I'll go to social media. So, you really have to start thinking about, why are people searching on that particular question? Why are they asking that question? And then you have to create content for, that answers that for each stage of the engagement cycle that you're trying to get the user into. So when you think about intent, we're thinking about things like, informational. Are they just saying like, what is this, right? The quick questions. Or is it experiential? So what is it like to do this, to be, a customer for this, or to use this product? Or is it instructional? How do I do this? Is the DIY kind of questions. And then, when you want to make sure that your content is set up to be found in and used in AI search results, look for ways that you can make it concise. You can use schema markup. There's all sorts of different things you can do to provide those, answer first and then put in all the fill in content. And there's going to be a lot of different, if you're looking to target somebody that is, really trying to figure out how to do something, that may be the perfect long form video for YouTube. But you really have to figure out what problem you're solving for your audience, and then where they're searching to find those answers, and then make sure that your content is there and optimized for that channel.
Got it.
I think a big thing, that we talked about, and Brian, how you brought up how there's so many different search formats now, right? People aren't just going to Google. It's Google, ChatGPT, it's social media, it's TikTok, it's YouTube, right? And it's various reasons they're going to each one of these. But I think a big thing that has come up is searching for things like the example we used, best restaurant in New York City, right? Or best pizza in New York City. We're going to TikTok a lot. And that is simply somebody talking in a video saying, this is what I think it is. And we're trusting them because maybe the video looks good, or we look at their other videos and they have experience. And experience goes back to that EEAT framework. I've also noticed since the last few Google algo runs that I run a travel website, right? When content is starting to be created where I'm showing my experience, I'm saying, hey, I went to this place, I did this, this is what I think about it. That stuff is starting to maybe show higher than just this is what you should do, because everyone does it, but more so saying, I experienced this, this is my take on it, and here's why. How do we start to incorporate our experiences overall into all of this content that we make so that we can start ranking higher?
Yeah, and I think so much of that is leaning back into storytelling. I mean, that's one
Mm.
of the things that makes us uniquely human, and our experiences are what kind of, just define who we are and how we react and engage with the world. And I think those are the types of things that we should start sharing. And we're going to connect with other people who are like-minded, who have similar interests and similar goals, and those are the people that are going to come in and form a community of people who trust our content, who trust what we say, and who are interested in our stories and experiences. And I think that's critical for any creator, any brand, that's really looking to connect with their audiences, is building that trust. And I think right now is kind of a window that we have that may be closing,
Mm.
in the future.
Wow.
I love that, just because like that makes me excited, because as a creator you get to be creative. SEO for forever was almost formulaic in a lot of ways, especially with those long tail keywords. And so when it kind of comes back and we can create and share our experiences and storytell, that's awesome. But at the end of the day, we still want our content to be shown, and we want our content to be shown in these AI driven tools. So Brian, what type of content overall is AI starting to surface or recommend? Like, is there a formula? Is there a system? What type of content should we be making?
Yeah, so I do a lot of work with different organizations when they're trying to figure out how to show up in generative search. And when you start going through the process and you start looking at what is surfacing, a lot of it right now is, authoritative content that's optimized for discoverability. So it's out there on a different variety of different sources and different channels. Um, you know, Different types of content are going to be surfaced in different ways depending on what questions or what prompts are being used within
Mhm.
the tools. Like navigational content, quick answers, those sorts of things are going to surface in AI, but they're probably not going to provide traffic to your website. 'Cause, there's a zero-click searches. People are going to get the answers that they want. Um, you're really looking for that high quality content, that audience first content that not only answers the question, but indicates that you are a source where they can come and get more information. They can get more details. When they're looking to make a decision, I mean, you can buy on ChatGPT now. You can purchase things right through there. You can
Right.
purchase through Instagram or through TikTok. But I think a lot of people still want to go to the website, especially if it's a larger purchase. They want to get that validation. They want to make sure they can trust this supplier. So I think trying to figure out how to show up on those search engines, on those AI engines is important, but also thinking about how you're framing the content that you're showing up there for those navigational searches to try to push the users into, either a deeper conversation where they're going to cite you even more, or into a traffic conversion.
Mm. Those are great points. And so my thought is, when you're talking about, I remember, because I think Brian, we're close to the same age, And we remember the SEO age where the SEO kind of bros were like promising, like, hey, just pay us this much money, you'll be on the top rank of Google and all this stuff. And a lot of times some of their hacks and their tricks worked for a long time. Is it taking longer now to establish that authority and actually make a difference in, we talked about trust earlier, that trust? I just don't see a way anymore that you can like do these certain things and you automatically are up there, or you pay this much money, you're on there. It takes time now. It takes time to, like you were saying, develop that authority. You go speak at conferences, people take your content and they share it out and all that stuff. Is it harder and taking longer to build that authority than it used to?
I think in like traditional SEO, it certainly is a bigger process now than it was, 10,
Right.
15 years ago even. But I think in the AI landscape, if you can get your content out in a variety of sources that are respected, sometimes it's easier to get indexed in AI than it is to get indexed in Google at this point. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, it's a little bit of a game there, trying to figure out what you need to do, how to structure your content. If you have the best content out there that is answering a question that audiences have, AI engines don't really care how long your website's been there or what your domain authority is. If you're providing the right answer and people are looking for that question, they may start surfacing you. So
Very cool. Okay. We've got some great questions here from Dustin from Magi, and I want to pull some of those up because I thought it's really good. So he goes, in regard to intent, don't you think that people are using AI search are mostly not looking to visit a website, but are rather just looking for an answer right then and there?
yeah, I think a lot of the traffic that we got, a lot of the organic traffic that we've gotten historically to websites has been either navigational or informational content where people are just looking for a quick answer. So yeah, I think a lot of the traffic, people are seeing their organic traffic dropping, their overall site traffic dropping, and they're panicking. I'm like,
Mhm.
well, if most of that content was people just trying to find a page or they were just trying to find out a quick piece of information, that's not going to convert anyway. You really need to look at, other data to see if that loss in traffic is really impacting your business. Um, so I don't worry too much about losing, that traffic. But I think a lot of people are going on to, these AI tools or searching in Google, and they're trying to do deeper research. They're trying to get, deeper problems to their
Mhm.
questions, or they're looking for like step instructions for things. So sometimes those things are difficult to deliver in those zero-click search results. I mean, Google's found this from the featured snippets. And at some point, people do need to click through
Right.
to your websites. And we're tracking websites, and we're seeing more and more traffic coming from these AI engines, and from generative search results and things like that. So there is a bit of a trade-off, and hopefully we're getting more traffic that is like better qualified traffic.
Yeah. It's so interesting. It's such an interesting time because this is stuff that is just, it changes so fast. And then Dustin has another question. He goes, in that same vein, Connor, do we actually want our content shown in AI search if the user's intent is not to visit our site? So this is a great question, Brian. I'd love to know your thoughts on that because, sometimes if they're not coming back to, like, I think about the recipe bloggers because I did a lot of work with Pinterest people, and they're all about traffic because Pinterest is basically a visual search engine. And so then they started showing the recipes in the search. Like you don't have to even go to their site. And that got them all frustrated. And now AI is doing the same thing. So do we care about do we need to switch on a whole new thought process for top of funnel content marketing if we're needing traffic? I mean, what are your thoughts on stuff like that?
Yeah, I absolutely think that it's time to change the way we're thinking about that top of funnel traffic and the way we're thinking about creating that awareness about our products and services. But instead of just focusing so much on SEO and driving traffic to our website, now we need to think about getting out into all the channels and making sure that we are everywhere providing those answers wherever people are searching and asking those questions. We still, there are a lot of people that, once AI really started scraping your sites and you started seeing the increase in bot traffic to sites from these AI engines, people were like, well, let's block all of our site from AI. I'm like, well, that's kind of like saying we're going to block our sites from Google because we don't want them crawling, our sites. We don't want them getting our information. That's why you put content out on the website, is so people will get your information, so you can share that. Um, and I don't mind having the AI tools scrape my website because I want them to show my content in their search results.
Yeah, I think that's a great point.
When you say stuff, Brian, like we have to be everywhere where all the searches are taking place and create content for everything. We have a lot of small business owners. We have a lot of solopreneurs that watch the show that when they hear the word everywhere, they get anxious and they're like, oh, great. That's a lot more work. Everywhere, right, is a big, big thing to do. So if a small business owner or solopreneur going into 2026, they can only focus on kind of one approach, one thing to focus on when it comes to change to get shown in AI to, create content more for AI. What would that one thing be, that one change be that solopreneurs or content creators should focus on in 2026?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it goes right back to the heart of content marketing and focus on solving problems and answering questions to help your audience. So we need to shift from, thinking about creating articles to thinking about building a knowledge base. So using pillar pages, using schema markup, citing your sources, things like that. Create the best content that you can to answer your audience's questions and to help solve their problems. And then it's super daunting. I mean, we've been telling people for years, focus on one channel, start in one place, put all your efforts into this. And I still tell people that. I was like, create the best content that you can on one channel, but then you can use AI to help you scale that content. So I've got a AI automation that I've created so I can drop a long form piece of video into a folder that's original content, my, original ideas, and it will create 40 or 50 different pieces of content that are optimized for different audiences, optimized for different channels, that all I have to do is review those and then, approve those to be posted to those channels. So there's a lot of ways that you can use AI to help you scale, because we just don't have the time or resources to make sure that all of our content is on all of those channels manually.
Yeah. And don't worry, you're going to be repurposed a ton. So that's, if you've seen this stuff of our show, we use the show, we beat the dead horse till it's good and dead. Yeah. So anyway, but that's the way you have to do it now. Like, we go live, this is our kind of our pillar piece of content, and then we split it off everywhere. And that's what helps get us traffic back and people click on our links. So very, very,
Jeff,
very,
I have
cool.
another follow-up question as well. Brian, you've mentioned a couple times schema and schema markup. I think for a lot of people here, that's very technical. It is very technical when it comes to SEO and how to structure your website and those sorts of things. Do you have any tips, maybe like where to start with that, where to learn more, or really what to focus on when it comes to schema and markup, and even just what it is in general?
Yeah, I mean, basically, it's just a way to tag your content on your site so that search engines understand what type of content it is. So, if you're doing Q&A, if you've got FAQs, there's schema markup for that, so that as the spiders are crawling your site, they know, oh, this is an FAQ section. So it knows to index your content that way. Schema.org has a ton of information about schema markup, but you don't have to get too deep into it. Most content management systems have some sort of plugin that you can use that will add schema to your site. It's basically just, a little tag of code that goes in before a chunk of content that says, this is this type of content, index it that way. So it just makes it easier for search engines, for spiders and bots to figure out what type of content that is and how they should categorize it. But it's not as technical as it sounds. It's actually pretty easy to implement. There are some great tools out there to make that process very painless for you.
So just tell me if I'm wrong, but if you're a WordPress site, wouldn't Yoast be one that kind of does that for you? Okay.
Absolutely. Yoast is my favorite schema tool. So
Okay. I just want to double check. So there's a great question or a great point here by Dustin, because he kind of was quizzing people. This is what I love about our chat room. He's like quizzing the chat, going, "Pop quiz: does AI actually do its own search within its search algorithm, or is it just doing a Google search behind the scenes?" And of course, this is the guy who made Magi. He says, "This is the biggest misconception in the discussions around AEO. I can tell you as an engineer of AI products, all these AI models are getting their results from Google search, that AI platforms do not have their own search indexes." That is another great point, Brian, like you mentioned before, is why don't block the robots from your site, because, you're going to be hitting yourself. You're shooting yourself in both feet if you're doing it that way. So I thought that was really great by Dustin. So.
yeah, absolutely. And you'll notice a correlation, once you start doing queries against these different LLMs and asking them, so I've got some prompts that I can use that'll generate a bunch of different questions about that your users might be asking about your content, or about your areas of expertise or your focus. And it'll go in and run all those queries and then tell you where you're showing up on those. And a lot of those, you'll find that if you own the featured snippet, like the people also ask result in Google, you will also own that query in these large language models. So that's something that you can start focusing on, because it's just conversational search and that's what they're looking for. Now, one of the problems with LLMs is it's hard to predict exactly how people are going to
Right.
search, because the questions, range all over the place. And then these engines are intentionally built to randomize the results. So you're never going to get the same result twice, but it tends to, refer back and cite the same sources if you do the same queries several different times.
Is there a big, let's say you run the same query on Perplexity versus ChatGPT versus some of the other AI tools. Are they similar, or have you been finding a bunch of differences between the different tools?
Yeah, typically, if you show up in the results, if you're cited in the results for one tool, you're going to be cited in the results on other tools. So there's some variation on how they organize things or where they pull their citations from. But yeah, typically they're pretty similar.
Got it. That's really interesting. We've got our friends showing up. Lube and Jello, who were just at his conference, says, "This is very helpful. Before I met Jeff, I couldn't even spell AI." Well, that's not saying much there, Lube. But anyway, I want to know what are you guys using currently? Are you guys using AI, or are you using like analytics to decide what you're going to post? Like, are you actually going in and looking at what your audience is clicking on in Google Analytics? Or are you just asking AI, like, "Hey, what's the best way to do this? Like, should I..." are you using AI for you're getting your stuff? Or are you like going by gut instinct? I want to know how you're deciding on what content to put out there. So drop it down wherever you're watching from, because I think that's going to be interesting as we move on to talking about data and AI together, because I know, Brian, a lot of your speaking that I've watched you do is on this subject, like using data and AI together. And I've been telling people, like, that is one of the coolest things. Yes, it's fun to write your content and make images. I love doing that. But when you can start comparing and pulling in data and using it ways that we've never been able to do before, we've just never been able on as a personal computing kind of level to do this. It's really exciting. So you talk a lot about data to understand what's actually working. So what kind of data should creators be tracking in 2025 and beyond?
Oh, that's a great question. So, one of the things I tell people all the time, is, if you're not looking at your data and you're not connecting your content to your strategic goals, then you are just, it's just random acts of content at that point.
Right.
You're just throwing your content out there and you're wasting your time. If you really want to focus on improving your content performance and optimizing your content to get the most out of it, I've been telling people for years, you have to look at your data. But I don't tell people that anymore. Now I tell people that you have to let AI look at your data, because it does a much better job of looking at large sets of information and figuring out what really matters and what doesn't. As far as what you should be looking at, that depends, right? It depends on your goals. But I tell people, especially now, I focus less on things like page views and organic traffic and pay more attention to things like conversions and engagement and revenue. Um, Look at what questions people are asking, what queries they're putting in to find your content. Look at what what featured snippets you own, what people also ask questions you own or should be going after. So, look at the channels, see what channels are working for you and which ones aren't. How can you better optimize for those? So lots of different ways you can look at your data to figure out, what's going to be most important, what's going to be most relevant to make sure that your business is moving towards reaching your strategic goals.
A couple follow-ups on that is I was today years old when I figured this out way, I think it was like last month. But on Ecamm, the tool we're using to broadcast the show, which is great, ecamm.com/Jeff, you can go and actually download the chat. It's built into what you get at the end of the show, which I didn't even think about. But now I can run from every show, download what people are asking questions in the comments, and have ChatGPT analyze that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a gold mine of stuff I never knew that I could do before. And that's the other thing I ask, and a lot of people I don't think do this, but you can, like, for Facebook ads, like I downloaded the CSV for this Facebook ads, and I'm like, hey, what did I not ask that I should have? And it gave me this great answer and analyzed stuff that I was like, it just blew my mind. So using AI in that way, I think kind of democratizes it for all of us. Like, we can all be data scientists to a certain degree now with the tools that we have.
Yeah, the same way that it's democratized coding, it is democratized data analysis for sure.
Very, very cool.
I think a big thing too is that when we were, back in the day, finding what type of content to create, we would go to Google Search Console, right? We would see on GA and Google Analytics what people were already clicking on and kind of make something that corresponded to that. And then Google Search Console, we could see what relevant queries people were searching for and maybe add more content from that. Or we go to a super expensive tool like an Ahrefs, right? And spend all this money and try to figure out what our competitors are doing and things like that. What I've been really leveraging AI for lately is doing content gap analysis, right? What content am I creating and what am I not creating, but that the audience is asking for? So I'll tell it to go to message boards, to go to, comments on social media, see what questions the audience is asking, but what content not only me but my competitors aren't answering, and have it come up with ideas for that. So Brian, that's just one suggestion, but what are some other ways AI tools can kind of help identify gaps in the content that we create and opportunities that we might miss just on a human surface level?
Yeah, I mean, AI is amazing at gap analysis, right? As humans, we're good at seeing what's in front of us, but we're not very good at seeing what's not there. So, thinking about how you can use AI for, exactly what you were talking about, competitive analysis, looking at other channels, looking at questions. Jeff, you mentioned questions that people are asking that, no one is answering. Those are great. That's treasure troves of data for informing what content you should create. I love using virtual customer feedback. So you create virtual customers, then you ask them what other questions, what might you have, um, all sorts of ways you can generate those questions and answers to include in your content, build content calendars. Search Console. I love Google Search Console. You can get so much great data out of there. And then, uh, but in the past, I would get, thousands of Search Console, entries with all the queries and things like that. And then just kind of, sort it by traffic and impressions and stuff and kind of take the top 10 or 15 and figure out which ones were most relevant. Now just export all of that data, throw that right into ChatGPT and say, I want you to look at all the content that we're creating, that we're ranking for. And I want you to look at our strategic priorities. I want you to look at our audiences. I want you to figure out where we have dominance, where we're ranking for multiple different keywords that are topically oriented. And then I want you to come up with ideas for content, either that, needs to be optimized, that we can improve the performance on, or maybe pillar pages that we need to create to kind of aggregate some of this content to show that we have authority over this content or over these topic areas, or most essentially, where the gaps are. What are we not talking about? What questions are we not answering? So yeah, it's amazing. It's a superpower for doing gap analysis.
So I want to go back and call a little bit of audible on something you just said that I haven't really thought about before, but creating virtual customers. I think I know what you're talking about, but I have not done that, and that sounds really, really cool. So can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So, virtual personas have been a game changer for me. And when I work with clients, that's, typically one of the first things that I work with them on. So, you start off by gathering as much data and information you can about your primary customers, who's converting, who's purchasing.
Mm-hmm.
You can use data from, your CRM. You can use all sorts of, any customer experience, customer service calls that you get, any of those questions that can inform who your customers are. You can use AI deep research to build several different resource documents. I love doing that in like 3 or 4 different large language models and then combining those all together. And then you can put those into custom GPTs or gems or, whatever
Mm-hmm.
format you want to put them in and validate them. So test them to make sure that it looks like they're returning proper results. A lot of times, I'll engage members of that particular audience to test the tool. And then you can use them to test your content. So you can ask
That's
them
awesome.
questions about your content, have them look at your web pages, figure out what the biggest takeaways are, what's missing, is the language, the reading level right, what different headline you might have clicked on, what different, objections you might have on that. And you can even run virtual focus groups. So you can start a
Wow.
thread, and then if you use a @ you can call any of your custom GPTs. So in one thread, you could have multiple different personas giving their feedback on content, and you can have them talking to each other and referring to what the other persona was saying about what they liked and didn't like. So it's been a huge unlock for me.
That is a very cool idea. You need to do a course on that, Brian, because that is really cool. I just had never thought. I mean, we talk about avatars and all that kind of stuff and marketing and podcasting and all that stuff over and over and over, but I had never thought to put it together with AI and have a customer that you can ask all the time, 24/7. That's genius. That is
Yeah.
genius.
I mean, we spend so much time and energy running focus groups and trying to get our, user feedback. And you can just generate these virtual audiences, these synthetic audiences. And we're seeing a lot more of this in, larger companies as
Mhm.
well. And there are agencies out there that are doing nothing except creating these synthetic audiences to do, that sort of user testing.
Wow, that's awesome. Very, very cool.
That's so cool. I think it's just unbelievable. I used to hate making personas in marketing. I'm like, this is the dumbest thing ever. It's like
Right.
Susie Q, unknown shopper, right? Like she doesn't know what she's talking about. I'm like, this is so annoying. But I think when you do it like that and you can constantly reference it, and more importantly, you can constantly update it, right? You can say, hey, I have this virtual persona. I have new data. Can we update it? And yeah, they can handle that. But Brian, we've talked so much about, how AI can help us improve our content, find new content, create virtual personas that we can bounce ideas off of and understand better to create additional content. But where does human creativity, where does storytelling, where does that play into in creating content today, especially knowing these algorithms and data, it's driving so much discovery. So how do we still keep that human creative touch?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we are still creating content for humans, at least at this point, right? So storytelling and creativity are where it all starts, and that's what sets our content apart. I mean, AI can help with brainstorming and ideating and organizing and scaling, automating all those different parts and pieces, but it all has to start with a human directing it with your human expertise and your stories and your experiences. And then it has to end with human in the loop, right? A human oversight to be able to look at the content and validate it and approve it. And do one thing that AI may never be able to do, which is take responsibility for that content before you put it out in the world. AI is great at synthesis, right? At telling us what everyone else has already said. But the humans are the ones that are going to make that different, that are going to create those new ideas, that are going to change the perspective and the way that we see things. So I think humans are still critical, especially at both ends of the process. And then AI can do a lot of stuff in the middle that we don't want to do anyway.
Right, exactly. So we talked about storytelling and creativity, and one of the best ways to do that is do video like we're doing right now with our friends over at Ecamm. You can find out more about them at ecamm.com/Jeff. They are what got me so excited about live video. And I think with the rise of AI, there's going to be more and more need of doing this where we can pull in questions, talk to an expert like Brian. I just think it's going to be more and more important as people are kind of like guessing on if this is real or not. I shared something with my daughter this weekend, and I was like, this is really funny. And she's like, Dad, that's AI. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I talk about this all the time, and I got fooled. So being authentic, having live video like we're doing now, I think Ecamm is a great tool to do that. But Dustin kind of slapped me down a little bit. He says, we've been talking about personas for 3 years. And I know he could, that's one of the cool things about Magi. You can have multiple personas. I just never thought, Dustin, of having like a focus group that way. So that's on me, not on Dustin, but because he does personas inside of Magi. So I want to make sure to make that clear. But I want to ask you guys, do you think that AI is going to replace traditional search, or will people always turn to Google? I want to know what you think. Do you think Google is on its way out, or it's going to be around for the foreseeable future? Let me know in the comments wherever you're watching from, because I think this is a fascinating topic. But I want to talk the time we have together, Brian, is what the future holds, like the future of discoverability. We've been talking, the podcast talk about discoverability. We're talking about that now for bloggers. Every piece of content now is like, how do we get found? It's so noisy out there. With these AI models like ChatGPT, I've talked about Perplexity, answering these questions directly. Alexa does the same thing. Do you think websites and blogs will still matter in the future?
Yes, I do. I think especially for, as you near end of funnel, bottom of funnel, I think they're going to be needed for validation. People are still going to want to go to some place to make sure that this is a trusted source, that they have some content, they have some history. But, I think we're definitely going to change the way that websites are designed. So I think they're still going to have to, they are going to be feeding all of the AI models, right? So you're going to have to provide a place to be able to train all those LLMs so that they're going to be able to return information that you're putting out there. So, these models still have to be trained with content. So the web is the best place to do that. But I think we're going to be switching. Jeremiah Ouyang at the Macon AI conference a couple of weeks ago was talking about this. He was saying that we're going to see a transition from, B2B or B2C. We're going to start seeing, especially with our websites, they're going to switch to these B to A models, where the business is talking to an agent that is then going to be supplying the final answer or the final decision to a human. Or eventually what we're going to get to is A to A. So we're going to be empowering our agents to go out there and create content and put it out there so that other agents are going to look at that content and make sure that that's the right solution for the end user. AI models need content, but I think we're going to start looking at, and I know a few people that are already experimenting with this, with creating a website that is just set up to be indexed by these large language models, that is all filled with, structured, schema marked up, very short answers, bulleted lists, paragraphs that are designed for the large language models. And then they're going to have another website that is really going to be for those, middle, bottom of funnel conversion type of customers who are going to come to the website.
So when you mentioned agents creating content for other agents, there's this old movie with Michael Keaton, what's called a Multiplicity, I think is what it's called. It's like he's making a copy of a copy of a copy. And the last person of him is really stupid, right? Like, cause it's right. Like every copy kind of degrades. Do you think that's going to happen with AI? Because if AI is creating content and we're skipping the human part and AI is talking to AI, like, doesn't it just get stupider or does it get smarter? I mean, I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
No, it absolutely does get stupider. And they've even shown studies that do this. When you're training AI with AI content, it just kind of dumbs down the model. So that's where you need that, human in the loop. You need the human innovation at the beginning of this process. You need the original content. There are companies out there that are just paying people to just write whatever kind of content they want to write so that they can train the models with this. Um, the quality of the content that you train the models with determines the quality of the outputs. So if 95% of the internet content is going to be AI generated by the end of next year,
Gosh.
then the models that are training on the internet are not going to be as good as the models that are just training with human data.
Mm. Wow. Such an interesting
Jeff,
time. Yeah.
Jeff, our friend Lou brings up a good point. He says AI is proving the importance of trusted, longer form content and storytelling, cough, cough, podcasting, because he does have his own little podcast. And
Little.
yeah, I said,
It's a huge
yeah,
podcast. Yeah.
I said little. But it's such a good point, right? Like you brought it up, Brian, about how all of these queries that we're sending to AI, it's coming back in very truncated, bullet points, like trying to get to the point very, very, very quickly. But then you also have these other search things like a voice search, right? Where we're kind of having like a conversation, maybe back and forth if it's on ChatGPT, or we're asking it follow-up questions that can be a bit longer, a bit more long form in the search scheme of things. How do we create content? How does that affect our content strategies, knowing our, visual and voice search is probably only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger every single year?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love engaging with ChatGPT using advanced voice mode. I'll have like hour-long conversations with ChatGPT in the car, and I'll get a ton done. I'll have it interview me about things. I'll have it write up things for me and outline things. I think over the next few years, as we're going to see digital form factors changing, right? We're going to see glasses, right? Those are going to continue to get better. Augmented reality, we're going to get earbuds. You know, I don't think we're too far away from like robotic pet birds that we can talk to. It's gonna get crazy. Um, People will always be searching. They will always be figuring out, where they can go to get their questions answered. So we just have to figure out how to get our content there in the best format. So it's going to be different whether you're creating, e-commerce is going to look entirely different. You can buy things in ChatGPT now. Looking at making sure that you are including images, that you're including video. You have those, precise questions and answers, but you're setting up the conversational search. That conclusion first writing style, I think, is really important, where you ask a question, you answer it, and then you provide the surrounding data, the surrounding information about it. It's still going to come down to creating the best content that answers questions and solves problems. We're just going to have to make sure that we're adapting the form factor that we're delivering it in uh, to be to fit whatever the search solution at the time is. And that's one of the reasons that I'm encouraging people. Long form video is the easiest to repurpose and redistribute for any other channel. So that's where I tend to lean into.
Yeah. Well, preach it.
At
You're
le-
preaching to the choir here. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. At least for now,
Right.
until like, augmented reality, virtual reality comes in, and then it's a whole different landscape.
Yeah. So just a little bit on that. Yeah. I think because the avatars are getting really close. Like, I mean, sometimes you're like, I don't know, like especially with Sora coming out and some of those other ones. That's why I love this. Like I can bring up like these comments that, like Lou said, I love multiplicity. Like I don't think AI in the near future is going to be able to do, maybe like, but for now, and having inside jokes and that stuff. That's why I love live video and the stuff we're able to do here with the community that shows up every Friday. One of the things I did want to ask before we wrap things up, gosh, this has flown by. It's been so much fun. You said that organizations need to have an AI integration mindset. So what does that look like in practice for like small teams or solopreneurs?
Yeah, and so much of that I think is just organizations need to start recognizing the sense of urgency around AI. Um, AI needs to become a collaborator. It needs to become a team member.
Right.
But for that to happen, organizations are going to have to create resources. They're going to have to allocate budgets. They're going to have to bring in some new headcount or shift some positions focusing on AI integration, because teams will need guidance. They will need guardrails. They will need awareness and education. So time needs to be allocated to AI professional development, because the companies that don't start doing that now are going to be playing catch up in the future. And for solo entrepreneurs, that means doing things like you know educating yourself, joining communities of people who are using these tools, experimenting and failing fast. um, I talked to a attendee at an AI conference, and they had an agency where they were the only human employee, but they had 26 different AI employees working with them. And that is a mind shift change. We have to start. I tell people, when you first start integrating AI, focus on, improving your processes and solving a problem. But you're working towards a mindset shift towards collaborating with these tools and figuring out better ways to do the work you're doing, not just faster ways to do exactly what you're already doing.
No, that is so good. That is so good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we still want to get discovered, right? We want people to find what we're doing. We want to put content out there so that people can find us and, buy our services, buy our goods, or interact with us and our community, whatever your goal might be. But Brian, looking into the future and also the present, over the next 2 to 3 years, what do you think is going to be the one new metric that we're going to define discoverability success with? What is that going to be when we create content and we're getting discovered? What's that new metric that everyone's going to say, this is it? This is how you determine if you're having success with discoverability?
Yeah, I think, I think a lot of the traditional metrics that we're using already are going to be super important, conversions and revenue. But I think the new metrics that we're going to have to start paying attention to are things like channel distribution, right? Where are you? Where is your content? How many places is your content in? I think it'll either be that, or it'll be, similar to that. I think it'll be velocity to discoverability. How long after you put content out there on all those places does it start showing up as the answer that people are searching for?
Wow. That's, I know it seems overwhelming if you guys are just joining us and like, oh my gosh, so much more stuff to do. I've got to be everywhere. But the thing is, the tools are making it easier than ever. Like, if Chris Stone's watching this, he always makes fun of this, but Google Plus, that's where I met Dustin. Even back in those days, we were using, live video and bringing in stuff, but now it's so much easier. Like, we have tools like Ecamm and Opus Clips and Descript, all these things that we can use now to really maximize our content. I wouldn't be able to do any of the stuff that we do now if it wasn't for AI. Like, there's just no way. Like, I don't have enough time in the day to do all that stuff. So very, very cool. Brian, this has been amazing, but I mean, if you guys ever have a chance to hear Brian speak at a conference, you need to make sure to go to his session. He is an amazing speaker, just a nice guy. Get his books. But Brian, where can people find out more about you, what you got going on? Talk about your podcast, everything that is Brian Piper. The floor is now yours.
You can find it all at brianwpiper.com. I put all my speaking engagements up there. I got links to my podcast. I work a lot with, higher ed industry, but, I'm branching out and starting to help a lot of, small, mid-sized businesses, B2B, B2C companies, because everybody needs to figure out how to use AI and how to look at your data and how to put out great content.
Awesome. The amazing, unsinkable Connor Brown, where can people find out more about you and what you got going on?
You can discover more about me. See how I did that? We tied that in. That's what we did. More about me at vacationkingdoms.com and at Vacation Kingdoms across the social medias. So much awesome stuff. I think I'm just most excited, Jeff, about creating stories, right? Being a storyteller and putting out content like that. That makes me optimistic for the future.
Yeah, and Connor's a little, go to his TikTok. He's been crushing it over there with his, what is it? I always say Drunk Disney, but that's not it. What is the title?
Theme Park Theme Park Happy Hour
Yeah.
over on Instagram.
Yeah,
with
it's
that,
a great,
but
it's a
plenty of
great
fun.
channel. Yeah,
I like
he did a
Drunk
challenge
Disney,
and it took off. Yeah.
Yeah.
So really quickly too, we've been talking a lot about it, and I would be remiss to mention our friend Dustin at Magi. There's a special code there, magi.co/Jeff. If you want to try that, it's one of the best tools if you're wanting to get started in AI. Play with the different models, the images on there, everything. And Dustin is super fast with getting the new APIs or new tools as they're released on the platform. So make sure you guys go check him out. And also thank you for our friends over at Ecamm for sponsoring the show, ecamm.com/Jeff. Use code Jeff15 to save 15% on your first purchase. And with that, Brian, thank you so much. This was amazing. You are a fount of information. We can't wait to we'll have you on again because I know this stuff is going to be changing by next week. But it's so much fun to talk about this stuff. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for Dustin, for Bill's Pest Control, everybody who left comments, Rich Watts, Lou Mangello, all of our friends who show up every week. We appreciate you. We'll be able to do the show without you. And with that, we'll see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.